Today, I'm taking you on a tour around Windover House. I love old architecture. There was so much detail, quality and care taken in making these things unlike today. But of course, back then there was money to spend. Or if you're in the United States, copious amounts of unusable space which somehow in today's world is a symbol of wealth. Concrete, cement, glass wall panels masquerading as quality. The symbol of modern architecture. The mindset that all you need is 4 walls and a roof. So why don't we all live in plastic boxes with cut-out windows? For me, it's because they're expressing us. What is the difference between those two seemingly very different approaches to design? Detail. These are questions that are not only important to me when designing and constructing, to sketching on my notepad, but to many aspects of real life. Let's take a step back in time. Similarly to most houses, the hall is arguably the most elegant. It's the first place guests see when they enter your home. If you want to impress them, this is where you start. Inspired by the largest and prettiest skylight built into architect Horace Trumbull's masterpiece, neoclassical revival Manor, Linwood Hall for Peter Weiner back in 1898, one of the US's richest men in the oil industry. As you can see, there's plenty of lighter colours and some plants further welcoming you in. The skylight, of course, letting in all this gorgeous natural light as the centrepiece. It's rare AFK, let alone in Minecraft, for people to use glass like this. The most utilised room of a house needs to be the most well kept for the Lord and Lady's guests. The last refurbished was in the 1920s. In 1941, the home was acquisitioned by the army during the war, and this room was knocked through and converted into a ward. Stripped bare like other rooms in the house, and coupled with a woodworm and damp, the remaining panels and furniture sadly had to go from this room too. The roof was also particularly bad in this wing. You've probably noticed that the ceiling's very low for a house like this. This is a fake ceiling installed temporarily for safety, while funds are raised to restore the crumbling plaster underneath. The study is a quiet place where the Lord can work without the distractions of his family or guests. This room is where important paperwork would have been signed, books written and read, and important conversations will have been had. This room is one of the most original in the house, used by General MJ who, for all intents and purposes, made this room his home during the end of the war. It's also one of the least damaged rooms after a great fire in 1926, which saw the rest of the house perish. You'll see the after effects of this once we're outside. This was originally the art gallery, but its purpose has changed often through the years. It was a makeshift theatre for a time, then a cinema, a ballroom, a games room, and now the Trust's event hall. Christmas is coming and the house is being prepared for opening to the public. There will be live demonstrations of how people lived in 18th century Britain and some museum pieces. The flooring was directly inspired by some of Robert Nash's work, one of the foremost British architects. He is the man directly responsible for many major areas of London, East Cowes Castle, but he is most well known today for the Royal Pavilion. He loved picturesque and sometimes unconforming designs, as do I. But while he has iconic designs under his belt, they did suffer from poor workmanship and sometimes subpar detailing. A theme you can spot here, although the developer for this estate unfortunately is unknown. Here in the grounds the dairy stood. Maids churned milk and nearby the outhouses. Water toilets only went onto the radar in the mid-19th century. Before then you had buckets or pots with ash. Wood ash removes odour, and human fertiliser is brilliant for growing strawberries. But that is long gone, all burnt down by the fire. The estate now has a housing estate to the east and a motorway to the south. The lake and the rivers are still a part of the property though, but will soon be sold off to help fund the preservation of this grand building. Gone is the estate farm too. Gone are the shepherds, the stables, the great gate, the dairy and the guest houses. Now there's a maze where the rotted out coal and woodshed was, a children's play school area by the grounds of the dairy, by the fish pond there was once an open space where the ladies knitted. Bowling was an immensely competitive game, so it makes sense that there is a field. Popular game amongst upper-class women at the time, and maybe beaten by croquet, which was all the rage a few decades earlier. Registered by Isaac Spratt with Stationers' Company of London in 1856, but the game itself goes back to 17th century France. The summer house is where afternoon tea would have been held when guests were around. A teapot with freshly baked cakes, jelly and pastries will walk down the main path. We know that the floor was marble. Standing lamps lit the lace tablecloths and rose bouquets that would have been picked from the garden the previous day. Sadly, we don't know what it looked like. The sketches no longer exist. Now it serves as a resting place for visitors. The staircase doubles as an art gallery for Edmund's collection. The paintings here though are from the last private owner, photographer Henry Swan, back in the mid-90s. And beyond the door is a ballroom. Upstairs, the new cafe is being constructed. The library would have had rows of shelves standing in the middle of the room and great mahogany cabinets. The army converted the room into an office, and after Henry Swan bought it, it was turned back into a library. The walls were panelled with cherry with ornate carvings and mantels. The army scrapped the room and painted the walls in white, a popular colour with the British for its practicalities.